Hello and welcome from Lovely Villain Designs. Reese and I are very glad to see you back joining us for another video. In this video, we're going to be using a couple of pages from our Summer Pink journal kit to make an accordion style ephemera holder. And in addition to the pages from the kit, we'll also be using some book pages. This is not our original idea. This is something that we've seen a number of other creators make, but I think they're just so cool and I really like the way they come together. So let's get started. I'll show you how we make it. We have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock and we've printed both sides with designs from the kit. And our printer doesn't print borderless, so I'm just going to trim off the borders. So first thing to do is decide which side of the paper we want to be on the outside, and then we'll make our folds. First, you'll fold up the bottom, and I measured it, and it measures about 4 inches, but it doesn't need to be exactly 4. You'll just want to be sure to leave enough on the top for the top flap and a gap there that I'm showing you between the bottom fold and the top. Then fold down your top flap, again making sure that you leave a little bit of a gap between the two, right there. And your folding of the base is done. And here I'm going to round the corners of that top flap, but that's optional. It just seemed like a good time to do it so that I remember to do it. Next, we'll use book pages to make pockets for the inside. And you of course want your book pages to be wide enough to fit, and we'll be trimming them down. And it should be paper that's fairly sturdy. This that I have is, it's pretty sturdy, but it's not very thick. It's, I think it was from a textbook. Next, I will visually measure how wide I want it to be, and so that I'll know where to trim it off, I'll just put a little fold at the top. You could also use a pencil and make a little mark on there. Now I'm just going to line up that little fold on my paper trimmer, line up all the pages so they're flush on the bottom of the trimmer so that it'll cut straight, and trim off the extra on the side. Next, I'm going to be folding and trimming the book pages to make them the right size for pockets. So you can see I'm using the same technique of putting a little fold there and kind of eyeballing it so that I can see where I'm going to want to fold it, and then I will trim it off. This is a good place to mention that If you mess this part up and you trim them wrong and they aren't big enough or they're whatever, if you have extra book pages, assuming you have extra book pages, you can always redo them. So don't worry, don't stress yourself out about getting the measurements just right. Also, you can make as many pockets as you'd like. You can make it as thick as you like. 5 or 6 seems to be a pretty good number, but it's up to you how many you'd like to do. So now that they're all trimmed to the right size, I'm just going to fold them in half. If you don't fold them quite straight, just fix it. No problem. I do a lot of double checking in this project to make things that I've got everything facing the right way and that everything fits. So there I just check to make sure that the finished folded pieces will fit in the pocket section, and they do. So I'll finish folding the rest of them. And you can decide if it matters which way the pages inside are turned. You're not really going to see a lot of them, but you will see the inside of the pocket, so it may or may not matter to you which side you have these folded, inside or outside. Here I'm triple checking just to make sure that they fit, and they do. Okay, next you'll be gluing the very edges of each of those pocket pieces to fold them closed to make the pockets. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but my cat has the zoomies, so if you hear some running in my video, that's why. Mau Mau has the zoomies right now. Okay, now you want to double check again and make sure that the open sides are all facing the same way, that the folded sides are all also all facing the same way. And you're going to put glue down the very middle. And I kind of eyeballed it, but you can measure it if you'd like. And just put a line of glue down the middle and glue 2 of the pockets together. And this is where, because you're kind of turning your pockets a little bit, this is where it's very easy to get things turned the wrong way. So double check yourself, triple check yourself, just make sure that it's all facing the proper way. So that's open, and you can already kind of see how it's coming together. And it wasn't quite straight, so I pulled this first one apart to straighten it out a little bit. And I think this part of the project will probably be easy for some of you, and it'll be a little more difficult for some of you. So just be patient with yourself. And again, you can always redo what you need to, but double, triple, quadruple check yourself to make sure that everything is facing the right way, so you don't have to totally redo it for that reason. And then continue with all of the pieces, putting that line of glue down the middle and gluing all of the pockets together that way. And you can see it doesn't have to be perfect, but line it up as well as you can. Okay, and I'm going to set this aside to dry while I work on the closure for the envelope part. And it's important to do this part before you glue the pockets in, because they will be covering the back of the brad that you'll be putting through. So I'll be using my 1-inch paper punch, circle punch, to punch a piece of chipboard. This is just a piece from, I think it was probably a cracker box. It's a little thicker than my cardstock. You want this to be fairly sturdy, and you can layer more than one together to make it even sturdier if you'd like. And I suppose my punch may be getting a little dull because it wasn't very happy about punching through this chipboard, so it was a little rough on the edge. So I got out my sanding block and just sanded off that rough edge, which is optional. It's not really a big deal, but it looks nicer when it's a little smooth like that. So I want to cut out some paper that will look nice with the summer pink. I think this was actually from the same kit. I think this is one of the backing pages that I just had scraps from when I made the journal. So I'm punching out a couple of circles of that, and I will glue those onto the chipboard to make it even sturdier. And of course, to make it a color that will go with the envelope color. And I wasn't thrilled with just the plain cream color. I wanted it to stand out and contrast a little more on the closure. So I decided to bring out my, what's that, picked raspberry? It's my pink Distress Oxide. So I used a little bit of that on there. And then I pulled out my Vintage Photo to give it even a little more depth of color. But of course, if you punch out your holes or your circles with some nice pattern, you won't need to do this step. Now I'm going to be punching a hole in the center that I will use to put the brad through. And if you're like me and you try to just punch it by eye, it's going to be completely off center. At least for me, it's always completely off center. So I like to put a little dot, eyeball it and put a dot in the center first to kind of give me my target. And that always works much better for me. Now, here's where you could punch through that with an awl into your foam, which is normally what I do, but I actually have a tiny punch that works really well for this. And it reaches into the center of my 1-inch holes or 1-inch circles. So that's what I'm using. So you could do either way. I'm taking out my brad that I will use to attach that circle to the envelope. But first, before I do that, I need to use this circle to align where I'm going to punch a hole in the envelope itself. So again, I kind of, on my grid there, on my cutting mat on the grid, I kind of line up and look at where the center is. That is the center right there. So that will kind of give me, again, without actually measuring, it kind of will give me a visual so that I'll have it at least somewhat centered when I line this up. So I'm going to line that up, and then I will take my fine tip marker and use the hole, the little tiny hole on the center of that circle that I punched and glued, to put a dot on the envelope right through that hole so I can see where I need to punch the hole to fasten the brad. This is the best way for me to do it without having to actually measure. So now for this, my tiny punch obviously won't reach all the way to that dot. So now for this, I am going to pull out my awl and my foam and just pop a little hole through there. Just like that. Now that's done, and I've got my holes on my circle and on my envelope. I'll just put my brad through the holes and fasten that to the envelope. And this step isn't strictly necessary, but I also like to put a piece of tape. I'm just using masking tape. I like to put a piece of tape on the back of the brad just to secure it and to make sure that nothing will catch on it. In this design, it really won't matter because it's going to be glued, but I do it anyway. Now I'm ready to glue in the pockets. They should be dry by now, or at least reasonably dry. And again, I want to double check and make sure that I have the open side on the top. So I'm looking, and there you can see there's the accordion style pockets. And I want to just glue them to the inside of the envelope. So I'm using a different glue for this. You can use whatever glue you like. I had this one on hand, and it's a kind of a quick drying tacky glue. But use whatever you like. You just want it to be something that's going to be pretty sturdy, because you're going to be pulling this open and closed quite a bit. Make sure it's lined up straight in there and glue it down. You glue it on one side first, just like this. And then flip it down and glue it on the other side. And there you go. You've got your pockets glued in. So now the only part that's left of the basic construction is to attach the string for the closure. And I chose a string that's fairly fine because it's pink. This is pretty. It's kind of a delicate design, so I went with a thinner one. But I also have a thicker one that I use sometimes for these. Of course, you can use whatever fits and whatever you like. This part is very straightforward, and I have done another video on this and posted it, so you can refer back to that if you need any information about how to tie this on. But again, it's very straightforward. Just tie it on, trim off the end, and on this one I'm going to be attaching a little charm on the end. I think maybe one of the biggest challenges of this part is just making sure that you make it long enough. So assuming you have plenty of cord, and I do obviously, just cut it extra long and then trim off the extra. Oh, and of course, little pro tip for threading that charm, I just use a little cheap needle threader. Does anyone else triple knot things? I tend to triple knot things. And there it is. That's the basic construction with the closure. And coming up next, I will do a little decoration. This next part is completely optional, of course. Just do whatever you like. So to finish this up, I just pulled out some ribbon and some lace in colors that I thought might go with this, and I went through them to decide what I wanted to add, just to add some finishing touches to the project. I just want to take a minute to thank everyone so much for joining us for this video and for our other videos. We're getting some wonderful feedback from you, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate you watching our videos and buying our digitals. It's really exciting to see someone enjoying the things that we've created. So thank you so much. Reese and I are very happy that that we're getting such a good response, and we're making some friends along the way. So if you enjoy our content, and if you haven't already, we would really appreciate it if you would take a minute to subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment, and come back and join us for future videos. Again, if this is something that you find useful and enjoyable, we really appreciate you. So, all right, I will just stop talking now and let this finish out, and we hope to see you in the next video. Thanks so much.